Hey guys, this is another Mag.JS tutorial. I haven't done one in a while. There's been some developments that have been kind of unreleased. We're at 115, which allows for import-export. So I'm just going to show a quick code sandbox of how to do that. So just use like a regular create React sandbox, and we're going to get rid of a bunch of this stuff here. But just to show you what to do in the package, we don't really need anything here. So I'm going to get rid of all this stuff here and change it from React to Mag.JS. And like I said, it's 115, I believe. Let me see here. Oops. So 115 is the latest. I'm going to do that. And we'll just leave this, it's a basic React here. We're going to use the ID root. In the index here, we're just going to import mag from Mag.js. Get rid of all the React stuff. I'll leave the styles there, why not? So with mag, we use the same function for pretty much everything, but we don't use JSX. We just use functions. So to create a mag component, just like kind of how you attach one, is you simply call the HTML template that you want and the function, which here is app, as a definition. So let's create that HTML, which is going to be basically the HTML that normally you would put in the React component internally. We're going to put it externally. And then you just return an object of what you want to map it to, is how you would normally do that. And then you would call the function directly here. And then it just would map it to the root here. So in this case, here HTML, oh, we have to define our application. So here's our app comp. We say const comp equals that. And all it does is just it attached this chunk of HTML here to this app function definition, which allows you to interpolate things in your Mag.js. Would basically be like if you want to change the H1, say, test, something like that. So this allows you to manipulate all the elements in this specific component. It's a definition function for this. You could also pass properties. If you wanted to pass like the name, a name for the H1, let's say Mike, let's say, right? And that becomes available through the props here. And you could say hi space, for instance, props.name to access the name there. So test Mike, hey, what's up, Mike? It's showing you just a way to talk to it. You can also use the class, for instance, instead of H1, you could say, let's say app there. So I'm attaching that to here instead of just to the H1 or to the H2, or you can do class names, you can do tag names. So why don't we do a little nice example that shows some components? How about reversing some numbers, like a long list of numbers? I have an example here. Let me see. Number reverse, right? So I want to reverse a bunch of numbers. There's only 5 there. How about if we reverse thousands? So let's create a quick array. Let's say array, let's say 100 to start with. We'll just grab its keys to use as an example. Oops, typos galore. And now we're just going to reverse it. So I'm going to take this example and put this into a module component. But let's just see like what happens with 1,000. Does it slow down? About 5,000. See, it's starting to slow down. Now I've tried this with React example, and I encourage you guys to, after you see this Mag.js example, do this in React. And from what I've seen visually, you can see a difference already. Just with only 5,000 rows, you'll see React take about double the amount of time. You see there's a slight delay here. The delay is about double the time, 100% more with React. So I encourage you to check that out. So we're going to take this component and put it into our modules in Code Sandbox. So in the source, create like a comps folder. And then in that folder, I think the first one was called number list, right? Number list.js. Let's start with that guy. So first thing we do is we import mag from, not mag, from Mag.JS. We're going to take this guy, we're going to import him too as a separate component. That's just a button. So I think it's called reverse button. So in here, I'll create another one, reverse. Now this is just showing you how you can separate components. These are small examples, but obviously as your app is growing, it will, components will get larger, and that's why we separate them. So all you want to do is export that as a default. Export default. Again, capital Mag. Come back here. We're going to import that bad boy. Before we export this guy, export default. Oops, no capital. Just default. And numbered list comp. And we're going to import our reverse button from reverse button. Simple, right? So this is our HTML that we're binding to our component function definition, which receives some properties, and it then maps to the HTML. It says what labels and tags and classes, what it should have. And here you can see we're calling another subcomponent here. And you can also see a handler event that is being passed to the reverse button component to say basically on click call this handler, which then calls itself again with some new values. So when it sees new values, it will rerun the function. And that's how you're able to re-render. And again, I encourage you to check out the source code when we do this and see how that works. So how about now that we've created these two components, one that calls the other one, why don't we bring it in here? So all we really need is a numbered list, right? So import, what is it? Number list from comps number list. All right, so now we're going to call it. So let's see. I think the only way to call it is just like this here. So we can create our own little kind of subclass place to put it there. Let's just say, div ID. We're just going to call it list div. And then we just map it. We say list equal our number list component. Doesn't like something. Oh, because we call it something else. Number list comp. And there you can see a bunch of LIs being thrown in there. But why is it looking all funky over there? It's a good question. Maybe it's from the styles. I'm not quite sure. But let's see if it works. There you go. You can see it working. Maybe it's the styles. So let's get rid of the styles for a second. Yeah, there we go. It was the styles. We'll leave it in there. It's okay. But basically, you can see what's going on here. We're doing a reverse of 5,000 rows of just numbers. They don't really change in any particular way. And this URL here, I'll save to the video in the description. You guys can, feel free to check that out. But yeah, that's pretty much the tutorial. Like I said again, I encourage you to match it up to React and just see the visual difference, and not even doing some kind of big test. Just see for yourself how it matches up, the delay there when you click the rows. And maybe it's not a great test, I don't know, but this is the Mag.JS way to do it. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I know I haven't done one in a long time, but this is the latest Mag.JS. I know it's not being updated all the time, but it's kind of a fun little tool that does its own thing in its own way. It separates your HTML. You could put this in a separate module if you wanted. If you wanted to share it, for instance, and have it as a shared module. But you can see you can call other components within the component. You can call the same component again with different properties to rerun it. And you see there's a clean separation of HTML and the values associated with that HTML. But it gets all bound together with you, and it shows you the scope of this. So the scope is limited to the HTML that it's bound to, in which it interacts with the different selectors. So that's it for this tutorial. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll, like I said, have that URL in the description. Thank you. Until next time.